So you got an X-T4. Awesome! Hi everyone, welcome to Pal to Tech. I have some recommended settings that I think you should make right when you take this camera out of the box and turn it on for the first time. So two things before we begin. First, take an SD card and put it into slot number 1 of the camera. The second thing you want to do is move your still movie dial to still. Press the menu OK button, just like that. First, make sure your image size is set to large, just like that. Next, set your image quality to Fine+RAW. There are hundreds of videos out there explaining why it's important and the benefit of shooting RAW. I'm not going to get into that here, but my suggestion is that you set it now to shoot both RAW and JPEG. Then you can keep copies of your RAW files, even if you're not familiar with RAW, because one day you may wish to learn about it and then you will be so thankful you have those files that you could revisit and edit. Next, go ahead and leave RAW recording to uncompressed. However, if you're really low on disk storage space, you could put it to lossless compressed. Next, on page 3, set your color space to Adobe RGB so that you have the maximum color gamut from which to work with when you're editing your photos. The next section of the menu is autofocus, manual focus. Go ahead and set store autofocus mode by orientation to on. This way your focus point will be consistent whether you're holding the camera in regular mode or in vertical mode. Next, set autofocus point display to on. This will allow you to see individual focus frames, which is very helpful when using the zone or wide tracking features. Now, for the number of focus points, you have a choice of either 117 or 425. I prefer to keep it at 117. This allows me to move the joystick around the viewfinder and capture the focus point faster and move it across faster than if I had it set to 425. However, 425 gives you more focus points available in either manual focus mode or when single point is selected during autofocus mode. To start out, I would keep it at 117 until you decide you may need more. Now, on page 3, make sure that AF+MF is set to on. What this does is it allows it so that if you half press the shutter button and the camera autofocuses in on something, you can also have the option of manually turning the focus ring, manually adjusting the focus to fine tune it. It gives you the most flexibility and the best of both worlds. Then go into MF Assist and you want to set focus peak highlight to red high. This is used for when you're manually focusing the camera to be able to better see what's in focus in your frame. And finally, on page 3, make sure that touch screen mode is set to area. You can change this at any time, but the problem with it being set to shot as default is that people who are new to the Fujifilm camera may accidentally be touching the screen, and every time you touch the screen, you're taking a shot, and it gets kind of annoying when you're first learning your camera. So set it to area for now. Okay, the next section are the shooting settings. Go to page 2 where it says shutter type and set this to Mechanical+Electronic. This will give you the most options in any kind of lighting condition to get that shot. However, electronic shutter does have some drawbacks to it. I made a whole video on using the different shutter types of the X-T camera. I will have a link to that video down below in the description of this video. Next, I would change image stabilization mode to shooting only. For most types of lenses and focal lengths, you probably don't need image stabilization while you're composing the shot. It's just using up extra battery life. Where you want to have it is when you're taking the shot. So you can save a bit of battery life by setting this to shooting only. Next is your ISO Auto setting. There are a number of recommendations that people have for this. Listen, if you're just getting started, you might want to set Auto1, that's the first one there, set it so that max sensitivity is 6400, just like that. This will give you a lot more flexibility while still keeping decent image quality. I also have a video on Auto ISO, which goes a lot more into this with detail and recommendations. I'll link to it down below. Finally, we get into the little wrench area where some additional settings are located. Under User Setting, Sensor Cleaning, Make sure that it's off for when the camera is switched on. The sensor cleaning function doesn't do that much really anyway, and you always want your camera to start up as fast as possible if you need to grab that shot or two. Next is screen setting. I would scroll all the way down until you get to DISP custom setting. Here, turn on framing guideline, electronic level, and the histogram. Now you want to go into button dial setting and make sure that shoot without lens is set to on. This will allow non-Fujifilm third-party lenses to be used with your camera if you want to. Also, along these lines, I would strongly recommend that you turn shoot without card to off. Basically, you are never going to want to take a photo without being able to save it to an SD card. Can you imagine going out and shooting a bunch of photos all day long and then realizing you forgot to put your SD card in the camera? This is nuts. No, make this setting change so that the camera will never shoot without an SD card in it. Next, go into power management and set performance mode to boost. That way you get the maximum features and performance out of your camera. For your electronic viewfinder LCD boost setting, make sure that if you're shooting mostly photographs, you have it in resolution priority. If you're shooting mostly video all the time, keep it in frame rate priority. Next, we're going to set up our video settings. So rotate the dial to movie. Press the menu OK button again. Now we are in our movie mode setting. I would keep my movie mode, but I would make one change and set this to 200 right here. That'll give you a nice compromise between file size and quality. Let's say you're shooting someone standing on a stage just talking and you're holding the camera and you don't have a tripod. I would recommend putting IS mode boost into on. Otherwise, leave it off. For AFC custom setting, I would set my tracking sensitivity to 0 and my speed to 5. Try that out, see how the autofocus works for you, but if it's going too quickly, you can always go back and change it. Like with still photos, I set my manual focus assist to focus, peak, highlight, red. Now that you've set up your basic menu settings, the next thing we're going to do is assign some shortcuts to the custom buttons on the back of the camera. This is purely a matter of preference. So I'll show you how I do it, and then I'll tell you some of my personal favorites for some of them, but then you can go to town on your own camera. Simply press and hold down the DISP back button for a few seconds, and then you'll get this screen right here. And as you can see, there are various options here that you can set for these different buttons. Here's how I have the buttons on the back of my camera currently set. If you're unsure of which ones to set or how to do it, you might want to use this as a general guide just to get you started. I actually assign a custom function to the Q button. I don't even use it as the Q menu. And then the other button that you might want to be thinking about is the very top right here. I have that set to Face Eye Auto Detect. Now I'm just going to tell you what I think to be one of the more handy button assignments you can make. That's this button right here. You see that? Have that one set to playback. Playback is at the very end on page 8. Now this is awesome because when you take a photo, you can just use your finger right here and hit that button and it'll immediately play back the photo that you just took. It's so ergonomically perfect, at least if you're right-handed. Once you've gotten familiar with everything I just told you, there is one other thing you might want to consider doing, and that is creating a My Menu area. That can be one of the fastest and most efficient ways to get to commonly used controls on the camera. Down here, you see how the My is grayed out? Because I've never added one before, and it'll look grayed out to you too. Let's add one right now, and then you can add some more. What you do is you go into User Setting, My Menu Setting, and you have a separate My Menu for shooting stills versus shooting movies. My Menu Setting, I'm going to add an item. Say I want to quickly change white balance. I choose white balance right there. Boom, done, saved. Now when I press menu OK, it jumps right to my menu, right to that menu item that I added. Check it out. Oh, what the heck? Let's add another one. Let's add photometry because that function was removed when the X-T4 came out from one of the top dials. Okay, now that it's added again, if I hit menu OK, boom, there it is. And I can choose the area of the image that will be calculated for the exposure. Okay, now you've set up your camera. I'm going to talk right now to the new Fujifilm camera users. Never used a Fujifilm camera before in their lives. Okay, here's what you should do at this point. Set the ISO dial to A and lock it down. Then set the shutter speed dial to A and lock that down as well. And finally, what the heck? Lock down the aperture. Set your dial to S right here. Make sure you're in still mode. Set your exposure compensation dial to 0, and then go out and start shooting. There's nothing wrong with automatic to get you excited on your first day of using your new camera. The settings part, the part that I just covered in this video, should be a very minor point of what you do today. So get out and start shooting. I hope this video has been helpful to you. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, there's no right or wrong way to set up a camera. These are my recommended settings, and no doubt you probably, if you're watching this, already have yours. And that's great. The important thing is, set it up for what works for you. And I will see you again in another video real soon. Take care.